in the old days of the Vietnam War, they used to have, and maybe they still have them, they used to have these bumper stickers down south and in my hometown and in other places that said, freedom isn't free or freedom ain't free. You'd see those variations. Let me tell you something. I'm going to put up a bumper sticker that says, free trade ain't free. And you know what? It ain't really trade either. Here's what I mean by that. This week, the House turned around and passed this so-called fast track authority for President Obama. Now, let's talk about that for just a second. This Trade Promotion Authority, or Fast Track Authority, as it was called, was invented by a Republican president, Richard Nixon, to push through international trade deals that largely benefited large corporations. But at least you could say one thing about Richard Nixon's Republican trade deals. They actually were trade deals. At that point, there was not the level of global trade we have today. But the Trade Promotion Authority, which is being passed now, is being passed to ensure that Congress has no chance to amend and very little chance to even debate the Trans-Pacific Partnership and other NAFTA-like job-killing deals that will be put before it by this president and, if we are unlucky, by the next president as well. Now, here's why I say that free trade isn't really trade. Because as we've discussed on this show with guests, and as I've said a number of times, these are not trade deals. We're already trading with the countries that are signatories to these agreements, and the tariffs, that is to say, the fiscal barriers to trade, are very low. So this is not a trade deal in any kind of traditional sense. So I wish the press would stop talking about Obama's trade deal or the president's trade deal or what have you. It's not a trade deal. It's a corporate privilege deal. Let's call it what it is. These deals allow corporations to sue sovereign governments, taxpayers, including our own, for what? They allow to sue for any revenue they've lost. Now, this is not just the Trans-Pacific Partnership, by the way, a new deal being negotiated also in secret, as the Trans-Pacific Partnership is in secret, would extend much of the same privileges to European countries. And we are being sued under NAFTA already, or at least the Canadian finance minister is threatening such a lawsuit against our banking reform regulations. So this allows corporations to either force sovereign governments, independent, supposedly free governments, to reverse their policies or compensate corporations for the money they've lost for everything from banking regulation to environmental regulation to food safety to privatizing public resources like water and power, or taking it back when privatization doesn't work. So it's a catastrophic and profound set of deals that is being pushed forward under the name of trade. It's not trade. They also call them free trade deals, but they're not free either. And here's what I mean by that. You and I will pay directly or indirectly whenever corporations feel that their chance to make even more enormous wealth and to direct even more of the world's income their way are thwarted. So you can't call a trade deal free if it allows a corporation to sue and get payment from the people of any country, including our own. Folks, free trade ain't free, and it ain't trade. Now, one of the headlines we saw, okay, a couple other points before I go on, because I got a lot to say about this whole trade thing, okay? Number one, it is ironic, to say the least, that a Democratic president, or a president who was elected on the Democratic ticket, is pushing this deal with the help of congressional Republicans. Yes, it couldn't be done without some turncoat Democrats, and I hope each and every one of them faces a primary challenger in their next election. But the fact is, let's look at the numbers here. As was reported in Politico, President Obama's trade agenda was jolted back to life, and that's talking about this week. But let's talk about the voting. The vote in the House was 218 to 208. Who got the 218 that got Obama his trade bill? 190 Republicans and only 28 Democrats. So 50 Republicans voted against it and 158 Democrats voted against it. So they call it Obama trade. It should be called Obama and the Republicans trade. There's an irony to that. And it's a shame that the leading candidate as of now, that could change for the Democratic nomination, has not up to now spoken out against this deal. Now, this week, she got the headlines she wanted. Here's one from The Hill. In break with Obama, Clinton won't back fast track trade bill. But let's read the fine print. You always have to read the fine print in politics, especially nowadays. Here is what Hillary Clinton said about fast track verbatim. She said, quote, I certainly would not vote for it unless I was absolutely confident we would get the trade adjustment assistance, end quote. Now, number one, that is precisely Barack Obama's point. Number two, that is exactly what the Senate is expected to do. It's expected to pass this, and I'll talk about trade adjustment assistance in a second, but that's the Senate will pass it without the trade adjustment assistance, but Mitch McConnell will promise that this trade adjustment assistance, which is retraining for workers, will pass shortly. Now, based on Mitch McConnell's promise, the president is saying that's good enough for him. Now, let's listen to Hillary Clinton's quote again. I certainly would not vote for it unless I was absolutely confident that we would get trade adjustment assistance. Now, she can say, based on Mitch McConnell's assurances, that she, like the president, is absolutely confident. So I don't see any daylight between her and the president on this issue. Now, I could be wrong. I hope I will be proved wrong. But as of now, I don't see any daylight on this issue. This bill must be stopped. Now, the irony, of course, of the trade adjustment assistance package is that allows for funding to retrain workers who have lost their jobs because of trade agreements. Now, but they keep telling us trade agreements are going to create jobs, not lose them. So why do we even need trade adjustment assistance? Of course, I think if you got to pass these deals, you got to train the people who are going to lose out, which is going to be a lot of American workers, and the funds are nowhere nearly what's needed to give people the training they're going to need, because we're going to have a lot more displaced workers than they're telling us. The data from past deals of this kind proves that. So we're going to have a lot of people without jobs and not enough money to train them, but a little is better than none. Now, as to the hypocrisy of saying that this will create jobs, and yet at the same time insisting on a package to train people who have lost jobs, I know it's hard to wrap your head around that. Here's the answer they would give. Well, no, in total, it will create more jobs than it destroys, and therefore it's a good thing, but we got to help the people who lose out transition, to which we say, let's look at the data. The data says people have lost jobs, people have not gained jobs in these deals. So there is absolutely no way any of the logic these people are giving us on trade makes any sense at all. Besides, if they're so convinced that the market forces unleashed by this wonderful deal are going to create all these American jobs, gosh, why won't the market forces also take care of training people for the new jobs? And a couple other things about new jobs, when jobs are destroyed by deals of this kind. When an American manufacturing job is lost, you have people who are 30, 40, 50, even 60 who are losing their jobs. Now, these are people who can't afford to retire. What are you going to do about those older workers? What are you going to do to a 55-year-old factory worker or someone working in another field that has lost their job in their 50s and their 40s? You're really going to retrain them? How well is that going to work out? How much time are they going to have on that new job? Is that new job even going to exist? And if it exists, will the people doing the hiring want to hire an older worker? What are you going to do about discrimination on the job? What if the jobs lost are in one part of the country and the jobs gained are in another part of the country? You still have underwater homeowners out there who can't afford to sell their homes and move, even if they could. Folks, this deal is a disaster, plain and simple. It goes to the Senate for a vote on Tuesday. Call your senators. Tell them you expect them to vote against this deal, and if they don't, you will not vote for them. If they are a Democrat or a progressive, you will want them primaried if they vote for this deal. It's that important. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero.